Hotbed Talk.
My name's Dr. John Moore. I'm presenting on Prehab for Cancer from Greater Manchester, and my background is I'm Clinical Head of Division for Anaesthesia, Critical Care at Manchester Foundation Trust. I also work at University of Manchester and Manchester Metropolitan University, and also work for Greater Manchester Cancer as a clinical lead for Prehab and recovery across Greater Manchester. The hospital I work at, Manchester Foundation Trust, is spread across a number of hospitals in Greater Manchester, particularly where we provide acute services at Manchester Royal and within Shore Hospitals. I'm also the medical lead for the ERAS Plus programme, which over the last 5 to 7 years, as you'll hear about, has been improving surgical care for patients across Greater Manchester, the UK, and also internationally. To give you a good overview of what I'll be discussing this morning, we've recently published in EJSO, European Journal of Surgical Oncology, an overview of our work, and we've titled it Implementing a System-Wide Prehabilitation Programme, the Journey of Greater Manchester Prehab for Cancer Programme. And that was published in May and gives you hopefully a nice overview of the work that I'll be going through this morning, how we've got to where we've got to, how we've developed the programme with different partners. And really what I'd like to try and cover with you this morning is 3 main areas. Firstly, focusing around surgical care for patients in Greater Manchester, and we call that ERAS Plus. And secondly, we'll talk about Prehab for Cancer, which is our version of a prehabilitation programme for the population of Greater Manchester. And finally, I'd like to talk through with you over the last few minutes about how we've supported patients during the time of COVID through this unique time in Greater Manchester. And to begin with, it's really important to remind ourselves why we undertake these programmes of improving care for patients, both before, during and after their stay when they have a major surgical intervention. Now, we'll commonly see various publications from around the world. This is a more recent publication that was presented in 2016 from colleagues in Holland. And what they again showed was that if you follow patients after major surgery, if patients develop a complication during their hospital stay, it leaves them with a up to 6-year disadvantage and morbidity disadvantage after their operation. So again, this reminds us of the need to try and improve patients' care both before, during and after their operation. And we're aware that patients, when they have a problem with their operation, they develop a complicated recovery. What happens is the patient's inflammatory cascade or immune system is switched on for a prolonged period of time, and that ongoing cytokine and oxygen free radical release process leads to an ongoing apoptosis and reduced organ function across the body. It also causes an acute accelerated atherosclerosis in the cardiovascular and other major vessels within the body. When we consider this at a system level, you might see problems with the patient's cardiac functions in terms of an acute cardiac problem after surgery, but also you see a longer term consequence where the patient develops persistent problems with cardiovascular atherosclerosis and plaque instability. And secondly, that might demonstrate itself as a longer-term cognitive dysfunction and acute stroke. And somebody with the musculoskeletal system, you might see acute neuromuscular weakness or secondary or prolonged disability. So you can see that patients developing complications after surgery through this persistent inflammatory process, this accelerated atherosclerosis, leads a system-level problem that we need to try and do something about. So the challenge for us, for all of us, is to try and improve the patient's state after they've had the major surgical intervention. And this means that we're trying to prevent deterioration in their function. So we want to prevent them becoming dependent, having been previously independent. And so we know that complicated recoveries can mean that patients are left with a degree of dependence which they didn't have before. And obviously when you chat to patients and talk through with them about consent for their surgery, they much prefer and they want to know that they'll have a recovery that leads them back to a normal level of function afterwards. And this well-published diagrammatic from Clegg demonstrates that very nicely. So the idea with prehabilitation, if you like, is this idea that we can improve someone's physical, nutritional and psychological function before they undergo a major surgical intervention, such as major cancer surgery or something else. And the idea with that is that if you get them to a higher baseline before surgery, when they undergo their operation, it gives them more opportunity for a better recovery and less likelihood of developing ongoing functional problems. But what's worth addressing also is, aside from prehabilitation, which obviously we're very interested in at the moment, is we also need to consider how we optimise the patient's in-hospital care. And that will bring us into the ERAS Plus programme in a short while. But also it's important we link these things up together. And alongside in hospital care, we need to think about how we accelerate a patient's recovery. And rehabilitation is extremely important alongside the ideas of prehabilitation, in hospital care and rehabilitation as well. And finally, it's important also that we use the opportunity when we talk to people about exercise, nutrition, stopping smoking, optimisation of their medicines and other such things, that we start to talk to them about long-term health behaviour changes and consider for them that exercise becomes the new norm for them. They continue to do that going forward in time. So you can see a public health message starts to come through following this acute surgical intervention. In Greater Manchester, we have an area of extremely poor health when you compare it to the UK average. And 8 of the 10 most deprived areas in the UK are based in the northwest of the country. And consider Greater Manchester as a population, the area that I work and live in. 20% of our population live in the most disadvantaged areas of the UK. More than 2/3 of our early deaths are caused by smoking issues, alcohol dependency, poor diet and air pollution in the area. We also have a very high level because of social economic disadvantage of patients who we consider to be invisible patients because of their level of reading and educational background, that they present very late as emergencies because they don't know how to present to healthcare, or they don't know what their symptoms mean for them. So you can see all these things together in the Greater Manchester and the northwest of England just have a very poor baseline, and so an area that we need to work with together to improve their outcomes. That has led, as it has in other areas of the country, to developing the Greater Manchester integrated healthcare system. So that is a process of bringing together through ideas around improving healthcare, improving education, improving stopping people smoking and exercise. You can bring an area, a large conurbation area together, provide it with its devolved fund to allow it to work towards its own solutions alongside NHS and other high-level organisations, but to have more nuanced approaches to its problems. And Manchester is a very good example of that. The 2.8 million population of Greater Manchester enjoys what's called devolution, so its population, so its budget or health budget is tailored more to the needs and requirements of its population. And we've been working over the last few years with colleagues from the Health Foundation, from the Transformation Unit and other colleagues within Greater Manchester, and with GM Cancer to help improve the care of patients in Greater Manchester. We've also partnered with local universities, including Manchester Metropolitan University, University of Manchester, Southampton, the Health Foundation, as I mentioned, the Academic Health Science Network across the UK, and also Macmillan, the Perioperative Quality Improvement Project, PQIP, to allow us to generate data and bring all these partners together under the Greater Manchester banner. So, for quite a few years, since 2013, we've been evolving what we call Enhanced Recovery After Surgery Plus, so an ERAS Plus programme, where we take six aspects of a patient's care during, before and after surgery. So when you consider before surgery, this is taking this idea of prehabilitation, preparing people for asking them to be fitter, to undertake exercise, nutrition, psychological well-being. We teach people through using something called surgery school, where we get them ready for their operation and talk to them about what they need to do to prepare themselves. We also have particular flow pathways within hospital to help people recover well. We have a focus on reducing respiratory complications, which we know are commonly linked to problems long and short term after operations. And we also talk to patients about recovery, so we have rehabilitation within our programme. And we also explain to patients we need to collect data from them to help us understand how we're doing and how we can improve our systems as we go forward. And this has all been, as I say, developed over the last 7 years or so now within Greater Manchester. And our initial focus was on reducing respiratory complications because we know very common after major surgery, 15 to 20% of the population will develop major respiratory problems after major surgery. It's a good measure of surgical care, and it also related to long and short-term morbidity and mortality after major surgery. And when you consider the team providing surgery, there's been a tremendous evolution in this over the last few years, particularly with support from the colleges, Royal College of Anaesthetists and Surgeons, with this idea that patients are at the centre of their own care, and all of us around the patients, including anaesthetic, perioperative, surgical colleagues, and the GPs, and all other sorts of healthcare providers, and the patient's own network, provide a network of support around the patient. But the patient is at the centre of their own care. So rather than this things happening to patients, patients are involved in their own care. They can choose to help prepare themselves. They can learn more about their operation and how they recover better. And with the ERS Plus team for ourselves in Manchester, we've included within that the role of the ERS Plus nurse, the role of allied health professionals such as physios, OTs, and speech and language therapists, and also the importance of the data collection team, led in combination with our clinical leads across those areas of Greater Manchester. So all these people together working with patients to get the best outcome for their patients. Alongside that, we've been looking at how we optimise patients' medical health. So it's about managing diabetes, patients' blood pressure, addressing anemia, looking at the patient's heart and lung medical problems. Can we make their medication better? Can we improve their lung function through different inhalers? Can we optimise their blood pressure control before surgery? Alongside that, this idea that well-being, which is so important, particularly at the moment, how we improve patients' expectations of surgery, both through anxiety management, how we give them tools that help them rest better, prepare for their operation. And finally, but very importantly, how do we improve patients' oral health care? Because we know oral health care is very much related to a chronic inflammatory state if it's left untreated. And oral health care is very good for preventing, good oral health care for preventing problems with your chest after operations. Leading on to that, we borrowed heavily from colleagues in America who demonstrated with our ICOF program that simple combination of incentive spirometer usage, patient education, oral health care, mobilising people after surgery, similar to the dreaming movement that's come out of the UK also, that you can get patients to improve their health, respiratory complications after surgery. But we also realised that you needed to meet patients before surgery. We needed to have an honest and open discussion with patients where we could have all of our nurse care, our AHPs and medical colleagues could meet people so we could have a good open discussion, understand what patients could do to improve themselves before surgery, what opportunities were there for them. And we talk to them, and we do talk to them in four main areas. We say, well, let's think about activity. How do we improve our fitness before surgery, both in terms of cardiovascular and muscle strengthening? We talk about chest training in terms of getting their lungs fit and healthy for surgery. We talk about the importance of nutrition, both before and after surgery. We also talk about the role that family and friends provide in terms of their well-being, their local networks, in terms of providing them support for their operations. And also family and friends, can be the coaches for patients before and after the surgery. So our work in Manchester Royal and MFT over the last few years, up until 2016, which we published here in March 2017, demonstrated nicely that you could reduce respiratory complications from a baseline rate of just under 20% to less than 10%. And also associated with that, we demonstrated a 3-day length of stay reduction with a consequent cost advantage for the hospital. So that was very encouraging for us in what we were trying to do, and also led then on to work within Greater Manchester as a GM ERS Plus programme. Now this is a Health Foundation supported and funding programme where the Health Foundation has provided for us the monies to employ data collection colleagues to allow us to collect robust data, working again with the Preop Quality Improvement Programme to help us look at the data we were collecting, the best way of collecting that. And across Greater Manchester, we set ourselves a task of improving care for both patients and families, understanding that again we need to improve the physical function, nutrition and psychological fitness of the surgical population. And our aim was to reduce primarily length of stay alongside reducing PPCs, taking the work we developed in Manchester Royal across another 6 hospitals within Greater Manchester to see if we genuinely could reflect ERS Plus. There's an idea of improving surgical care for patients across a conurbation. The data I'm going to show you now is going to focus on colorectal, but we've also looked at lung and upper GI pathways within Greater Manchester. We took a 2-phase approach, where we split the city in 2, where we had the southern part of the city, which was Wythenshawe, Christie's, and Stockport hospitals, where we introduced the first phase of the ERS Plus implementation project. Then we moved after a few months to working with Salford, Bolton and Oldham, and then North Manchester hospitals in a 2-phased approach. We also supported this by the creation, with Health Foundation support, of an ERS Plus app, a very simple app that allows patients to understand what we're asking them to do, where we introduce it to them in surgery school, and it allows patients to have daily reminders about the different aspects of ICOF, exercise, nutrition, which helps them support them in terms of their preparation and recovery from major surgery. So 6 teams across Greater Manchester. The project was driven from 2017 to 2020, just finishing just recently. And during that time period, we collected data on 1,500 patients, more than 1,500 patients undergoing colorectal surgery. And we also, alongside that, had monthly steering groups where all of our teams would come together, meet, share processes, share what was working, share what wasn't working, And that was supported by Halo and Transformation as our quality improvement and operational partners. We also, as I mentioned before, had great quality data collection working with the Preop team from Romani and colleagues in London. So what I'm showing you now is some of our surgical outcomes. These are unpublished at the moment, and we've just finished starting to analyse them. What you're seeing here is for the colorectal population across Greater Manchester, the benefits of the ERAS Plus programme. So at this point here, you'll see November 2017, we started to introduce the ERAS Plus programme. In the time period before this, you're seeing that we have an ongoing length of stay for colorectal of around 12 days. We introduced the ERAS Plus programme, and that's then implemented across the 6 sites with involving 1,500 patients. And you can see the different phases of the programme, phase 1 and phase 2. And over time, you see a nice, robust 3-day length of stay reduction through the ERAS Plus programme. So very successful in terms of our primary outcome, which was to reduce stay for patients in hospital after major elective colorectal surgery. As I mentioned before, we have lung and upper GI data, which we're working through at the moment. Very importantly for us was our patient feedback. This is one of our patients from Stockport who commented that for him, it made him feel like he was a better patient. Not something we'd asked of him, but he felt so well prepared that he could do his part in preparing himself for his operation. So the learning from this was that with ERAS Plus, we could use the platform to allow us to create a 3-day length of stay reduction similar to what we'd shown in our initial work. And this seemed to be primarily around a combination of people getting fitted before surgery, so our Prehab version as was, surgery school implementation for all of our patients, and then using dreaming particularly around eating, mobilisation as our goal endpoints in terms of improving outcomes for surgery, alongside the importance of working with teams and the benefits of good data collection. So hopefully I've shown good evidence there for the importance of surgical care in terms of how we improve outcomes for patients. Secondly, I'd like to focus on prehabilitation. So prehabilitation for us has taken on the aspects of both prehabilitation and rehabilitation, so supporting recovery after major surgery, alongside the idea that we can engender long-term health behaviour change, as I mentioned before. Within Greater Manchester, I became the GM Cancer Lead for Prehab and Rehab, and working with the team, we were awarded a grant to allow us to deliver free prehabilitation for 2,000 patients across the Greater Manchester area. And this was going to be delivered for patients undergoing major surgery initially, moving into chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And that had been our plan when we launched in April 2019. There were 2 aspects to the intervention. One would be a universal prehab model where it would be slightly lighter touch but would give access to the community gyms in Manchester, with then a more specialised prehabilitation model which would be more intense and would have more support for the patient undergoing the prehabilitation intervention. And our prehab is genuinely multimodal. It brings together physical activity, nutrition, well-being, so psychological preparation and recovery, smoking cessation, medical optimisation, so working alongside and building on the ERAS Plus principles. And we termed, as I say, there's prehabilitation for cancer or prehab for cancer in Greater Manchester. And in this, we're partnering with Greater Manchester Cancer, working with GM Active. The GM Active is the 12 leisure and cultural organisations across Greater Manchester that provide leisure and cultural activities for the population of Greater Manchester. And they very conveniently, for us, came together very recently as GM Active. And GM Active is an ability then to speak to all these organisations as one. And we entered then into a service level agreement between GM Active and GM Cancer, where we agreed KPIs and we agreed the principles of delivering healthcare and prehabilitation and recovery for our population of patients undergoing major surgery across the 80 facilities of GM Active. And with this, we had 15 particular centres. We developed those as evaluation centres, working with UK Active and colleagues from the Met, Solent and other colleagues around the country to develop the genuine exercise and robust exercise intervention that we wanted for these patients, using these evaluation centres to allow us to monitor patients' progress as they underwent the intervention. Now, understanding which patients need what, it's important to understand that surgical risk dictates the type of intervention or prehab patients should get, because our risk as it increases through frailty, our comorbidities, and if we're more deprived, then it mandates for us that we need to give the patients a more specialised offer. They need more support when they undergo their intervention, versus someone who lives in a more affluent area, maybe younger, with low comorbidities. They may benefit very much from a universal approach. When we consider this for our patients, following MDT decision to operate on a patient, The patient is then referred through the Prehab for Cancer online portal, and at that point they're then evaluated and given a supervised or a universal program. The program itself, in terms of exercise, gives a combination of high intensity cardiovascular exercise and strength building, very much around hoping to provide high intensity where the patients are able to do this, but very much tailored around the patient's abilities, but with the idea that through the program of a progressive number of weeks, the patient will get stronger and fitter, and the program very much tailored towards the patient's abilities as they go through the program, aiming for at least 3 times a week where possible, but that's difficult when you consider the other things that patients have to go in a real-world program. We use the referral system, which is commonly used in the gyms across the UK and UK Active supported, which provides a way of the gyms when they undergo the evaluations of the patients and assessments, that it allows us to undertake a functional capacity evaluation for the patients at baseline, which includes either incremental shuttle or 6-minute walk test, hand grips to measure frailty, a 1-minute sit to stand, alongside other questionnaires as detailed here and other health checks. When we put this together within the program, you can see that ERAS Plus and Prehab for Cancer sit very much together. And there's 4 time points within the Prehab program. There's the time point or time stamp before the patient undergoes the program, where we collect information from them, just detailed before. We have a second time stamp where after the program Prehab finishes and before the patient undergoes their operation, we try to repeat their measurements, allowing for time. And then we meet the patient again after the operation, usually 3 to 4 weeks after surgery, where we encourage them to enter into the rehab or recovery program. At this point, patients are then offered a 3-month program of rehabilitation, which is slightly less onerous than the prehab intervention, because we're very much encouraging patients to recover at their own pace, but guiding them towards a good functional recovery, and also considering that they make exercise and nutrition and other aspects of the program part of their normal care going forward in the years to follow. Alongside the program as detailed on the slide, you can also see that we're collecting lots of additional information, including outcomes such as 90-day length of stay, 2-year mortality and morbidity for the patient population. I hope this slide brings together the 2 things I've mentioned to you already, which is the ERAS Plus program sitting very much together with the Prehab for Cancer program. In terms of the Prehab for Cancer program, I would suggest it's been extremely successful as a system level change. Between April 2019 and March 2020, we had over 1,000 referrals into the system, which is amazing for a system-level approach outside of an RCT. Within those 1,000 referrals from the MDTs, more than 80% of our patients decided to join the program. And once they joined the program, our uptake through the prehab to surgery was extremely high, with very small numbers of people leaving the program for different reasons. So really, once the gyms were able to meet the patients, they were very encouraging for them to stay within the program, and they felt very supported in terms of their prehabilitation. The service that Prehab for Cancer GM Active provided was amazing, where 92% of patients were contacted within 2 days of referral. More than 100% of patients were accessing their gyms locally, with a very fair split between targeted and universal. So what we've found so far in the first year of the program, well, more than 400 patients have undergone colorectal prehab, 300 lung, and more than 150 within upper GI. And what we've managed to do, as we set out to do, is we've managed to increase physical fitness for our population. So for 6-minute walk test as an endpoint, we on average increased the distance by 50 metres, similarly for lung by 60 metres. And again, we showed fitness, resilience for patients undergoing adjuvant chemotherapy within the upper GI group. So this tells us that system-wide GM prehab is achievable across a major system such as Greater Manchester. Our patient feedback has been, if I might say, phenomenal. So it's that patients see this as their resource, as something that they would want to help develop, and something very much that they feel should be given to everyone. They had no doubt that the patients that taking part was the right thing to do. It was manufactured according to their needs, and for them, they were very much encouraging for future patients to undertake the program going forward. What we're working on now, allowing for COVID and other things, is we want to demonstrate the impact of this first year. Obviously, with the introduction of COVID and its problems, it's meant that we've had to change the program the way it's been delivered. So we'll have a year's worth of data to understand how successful the program was, and we're working with our colleagues in GM Cancer and resilience mapping to understand whether we can, once COVID is more formally dealt with, that we can provide this program robustly going forward. So for us, it's trying to look at the hospital length of stay. Can we provide the the value that GM Healthcare needs to invest in this program going forward. And that's obviously a challenge for all prehab programs across the UK and internationally. And for us, it's wanting to show a better functional outcome, quality of life experience from our patients, and hopefully show that our survival over the next 2 years or so for patients is better than it was previously. To help us do this, we're working with the GM partnership team. Another advantage of working with an organisation such as a devolved state, where you can work with a partnership, and we can work with local colleagues across the partnership to deliver GM level data using a process where we use the data services for commissions which utilise to allow us to get historical data for our patients. And over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be able to understand how our patients have progressed through the system following Prehab for Cancer programme. Now, I'd like to finally touch upon COVID, because obviously with COVID, there's been a tremendous change in the way we've been able to deliver the programme. And as of the 12th of March, we had to fully remote the Prehab for Cancer programme because of the need to stop the gyms. So very quickly, the Prehab for Cancer team turned our programme into a virtually based Prehab for Cancer programme. So a combination of patient, phone and video support was installed within a very short period of time, and now supporting over 300 patients recovering from surgery, and also patients that are going to have surgery in the short while. So more than 300 patients supported for surgery and new referrals. Amazing effort that. Alongside that, the team developed a home exercise guide which provides support for patients, and in this, the patients this is sent to them either through the post or through email, and it gives them an overview of their exercise guide and what they're asked to do. It gives them a simple review of what perceived exercise looks like, and we've simplified the Borg scale down to 10 rather than the normal, slightly higher number of scores. So we want it very simply for patients so they can understand the exercise intensity we need them to undertake during the programme. And with the support of the gyms, talking to them online or through video, they then, as I say, they meet with them once or twice a week, and they give them these diaries which they then ask the patients to go through with them, supports them both from a nutrition and exercise point of view. For the supervised group within this programme, then that would normally mean patients would be contacted on at least twice a week. For the more universal approach, it might be slightly less, once a week, or patients can speak to their coaches and say, listen, I'd like to chat to you about something else if they need further information. Alongside this, we have numbers of schematics of different types of exercise which support the programme and can be tailored to the patient. Very interestingly, we started to work with MyZone to help us understand how we get people to undertake exercise safely in the home environment or outside, more like as we are able to do now. So working with them, we've got around 20 patients at the moment undertaking MyZone type belts, where we're allowed, with their permission, looking at their exercise sessions as they undertake them to help us to understand our patients actually taking the type and the amount of exercise we want them to do. So at the moment we're supporting, as I mentioned before, around similar numbers of 100 or so in colorectal and 50 or so in lung, and a slightly smaller number in upper GI, both before and after major surgery, understanding that patients who've had major surgery are now into a virtual type Prehab cancer recovery programme. So hopefully over the last 25 minutes to half an hour, I've had an opportunity to share the work we do in Greater Manchester, where we've been endeavouring to improve surgical care and introduce a system-level Prehab programme, which hopefully you feel that we've managed to do that. I would also point you, as I said earlier on in the presentation, to the article we published earlier this year in the EJSO to give you some more information. And we've got contact details through the article if you'd like to contact us directly. Many thanks for the time. Thank you.
Top Med Talk. Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube. And also, don't forget, Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.